Yeah, real shame. I suppose fight fans will say, still getting paid 18, $20 million if the reported pay cut figures are correct, is still an absolute chunk of money. Others will say that Canelo's is the leading brand in the sport of boxing, and he should be able to call the shots himself. Again, others will say in the contract there's this talk about one premier event every year. So maybe, with all due respect to Rocky Fieldings, those kind of opponents should be few and far between. What's your personal take on it, and how do you think it's going to play out?
I just think when you're signing a fighter in a sport like boxing to 11 fights for that amount of money, you are empowering them beyond all sense of purpose, really. I mean, it's so difficult now for DAZN to get out of this one. It's difficult for Canelo to move forward. This, in a sport like boxing, where there's no fixture list, where there's no structure, it just empowers the athlete to the point where they can basically go and do what they like. That was always the concern when this deal was announced. Should he be fighting? Should he be made to fight the best available opponent, which is Gennady Golovkin? Well, of course he should. Of course he should. But he feels that wasn't laid out in the contract, and so we go down this very messy road. But then, it's the other side of it is it's very easy for people to criticise Canelo, and it may sound like that I was criticising Canelo. He is not averse to fighting the best opponents for him, and I can go back to the Miguel Cotto contest. Now, after that fight, and he was to address the media after winning that fight against Miguel Cotto. I think Canelo Alvarez was taking a drug test or something, so Oscar De La Hoya was kind of keeping the press amused and fielding questions. Now, after that contest, the biggest question was, Canelo surely now has to fight Golovkin next. De La Hoya was stalling on it. De La Hoya was stalling on it, saying, well, we don't know. We don't know if that's going to be right yet. He's not the right weight yet, etc., etc. Canelo appears. He's asked the same question, and he says, absolutely, I want that fight next. I want that fight with Golovkin next. Now, people are not aware of these things. Canelo has been desperate to fight the best opponents. In his mind, he may feel like the business with Gennady Golovkin is done and dusted. He doesn't want to go back down that route. He doesn't want to go back in with a fighter who he feels he's beaten, a fighter who was bad-mouthing him quite badly in the build-up to the rematch in terms of the drug issue, which from Golovkin's point of view you can understand. But anyway, from Canelo's point of view, he's been there, he's done that, and he wants to move on. It's all ever so messy, and it speaks of the lack of structure in the sport, in that the boxers are allowed, in essence, to pick and choose who they want to fight.
Well, this is the youngest champion in Devin Haney and the longest reigning champion with Russel Jr. Russel Jr. is an Olympian. He has that pedigree. And speaking of Lomachenko, that's his only loss. So there's no shame losing to the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Here's what I'm concerned with. The disadvantage with the reach, the height. I think it's 4 inches in height that Haney has. 11 years younger, and he's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. And Russel Jr. is moving up 2 weight divisions to fight him. So, yeah, he's going to have the experience, Russell is, but that's just way too much. That's way too many numbers for him to have to beat. And right now, Devin Haney, his star is ascending, man. He's doing everything right. The momentum's there. The hunger's there. As a matter of fact, it's Devin Haney calling out the champ, the longest reigning champ. So you gotta give the credit to the younger, fresher, bigger, natural 135 pounder here.
Yeah, I'm worried about Gary Russell Jr. He's fought only 5 times in the last 5 years. You sure he's going to be ready? He just fought in January, Sergio. Does he have enough time to prepare for Devin Haney? It's not even been 365 days.
Well, he fought in February for once, but whenever you're fighting once a year, that inactivity, it starts having a wear and tear on you, especially the older you get. Gary Russell Jr., I believe, is 32 years old. This is the time when that inactivity starts hitting. Not when you're young and fresh and cool and beating everybody. It's when you get into your 30s, which you forgot about long time ago, Todd. But that's when the inactivity kicks in.
Well, let me ask you this. I've seen a couple of polls and people talking about it. Who's the best young prospect in boxing today? Sergio, we've called a couple of Devin Haney fights. We've called Sergio Garcia. I've called Shakur Stevenson. Of course, there's Teofimo Lopez out there. There's Tank Davis. But when I give the eye test, the guys I've seen, Devin Haney just looks a level up. And in the ring against Gary Russell Jr., I think he's going to be more than comfortable, and I think he's going to win this fight relatively easy. Am I wrong?
Well, you're wrong about one name. Sergio Garcia is a golfer. Once again, you go with Sergio Garcia. I don't know where your mind's at, Todd, but you named a lot of great boxers and up-and-comers there. But a lot of those guys are champions. So who's the best young champion? I would say it's Devin Haney. At 21 years old, he's already a world champion, and he's calling out the big dogs. He wants the big names. To me, Devin Haney's your guy.
I just wanted to just give everybody an update on what's going on and what the status is. It's business. So we received the term sheet. We finally got a chance to actually get around, get it sent over to our attorneys and everybody else. And I want to say this to Bill Haney. Stop going around here telling people that y'all own boss and that y'all running shit, because y'all not. So get off the phone with Al, and an attorney of mine. And in the first line of the term sheet states that this fight will only take place based upon only if DAZN and Matchroom picks it up. That's a red flag. That's a red flag, because if y'all gonna make a fight, DAZN and Matchroom should have already picked it up, and they should have already been included within the contract, because DAZN is pretty much like this Devin Haney's promoter, and Matchroom is pretty much like the network or whatever that we would be competing on. So how the fuck y'all gonna send me a blank check? That's basically what they did, y'all. They sent me a blank check, y'all. They sent me a term sheet without the network or the promotion, which is DAZN and Matchroom, without them being included in it at all. And ultimately, I think what Bill is trying to do, I'm not gonna say Bill and them not trying to make the fight. I'm one of the ones that's going to be real with the people. I think they try and make the fight, but I think Bill trying to middleman some shit and try to get me, to be like, well, look, I got everything. We agreed to all the terms, and we got everything situated, and this is what it is. And then he wanted me to sign, and then he's going to go and take it back and try to present it to DAZN and Matchroom, and then they will have the choice whether they would, want to take the fight or not. They could very possibly be like, nah, that's not a good fight. So y'all trying to get me to sign a blank check? What the fuck?